This is my original save file of Fire Emblem Awakening from many, many years ago. You may notice that Lisa is actually not here. Well, you see, that's because one of the very first things I did when I got the game was kill her off because people online said that, permadeath's a thing and your choices really matter. So I wondered how would killing off the main character's little sister right away change the plot? Well, let's see.
It didn't. For a series that has emphasized choices a lot in recent entries, Fire Emblem sure doesn't have a lot of choices that actually matter. In Awakening there are many of these choices, like the one where you can have Lucinder kill you or whatever, but none of that actually does anything narrative-wise. And Three Houses has about 100 more superfluous story choices than Awakening. You could even say that whatever house you choose doesn't even matter, because outside of the main lord and their retainer, you can generally recruit everyone, and you'll just be playing the same 3 maps over and over again regardless of which house you choose. And in Fire Emblem 12, you can put on a hat. Okay, so your story choices don't really matter in Fire Emblem. Now I get it. Making choices in the story that seriously change your gameplay wouldn't really go over well. Okay, so brief catch-up for those who don't know. Lisa is an RPG that also has permadeath that has choices that impact the story and the gameplay. In this instance, an antagonist is giving us a choice to cut off the main character's arm, which will cripple his combat for the rest of the game, or kill off a party member, which means we'll have one less character to help with combat, and other party members are more likely to abandon us. So it's quite an important choice. Now this is a heavy choice in a video game. Not Lucina trying to stab Robin only for Chrom to step in no matter what. And there are several choices like this throughout the game. Like where we have to choose between our entire party dying, or the main character's daughter getting a very sensitive part of her body cut off. Now the obvious gameplay choice here is to keep your party members alive, but cutting off the daughter's sensitive piece will affect some of their dialogue later. So the player has a choice here: gameplay benefits or character relation. This is a heavy choice that will differ from player to player. Now, your choices in gameplay will affect your experience in Fire Emblem. Like, for instance, you can choose to deploy Ogier. Now, I don't see why you would ever do that, but hey, you technically can. And of course, there's the big one, permadeath. If you make a poor choice, your unit will bite the dust. Now here's the thing, most players just say screw that and reset their console to try again, or just play on casual mode. Sure, you can Iron Man games, but that's more of a self-enforced rule than the game actually forcing it upon you. But in games like Binding Blade and Shadow Dragon, there are plenty of characters to replace the old ones, so an Iron Man of these games wouldn't be too punishing. However, permadeath is becoming less and less of a choice in recent entries. In Three Houses, after the time skip, you recruit nobody, so if Lysithea bites the dust, good luck trying to use Warp if you then end up getting Linhardt, Manuela, or Happy. You'd have to be an idiot not to reset for a character in Three Houses. So while the option of permadeath is there, it's more of a massive inconvenience than it is an actual choice. So what makes permadeath so loathed in Fire Emblem, but generally accepted as a feature by Lisa the Painful fans? I believe it's the or that's in Lisa. You can lose your arm, or you can lose a character. So while you lose something great, there's also the bright side that you get to keep something. In Fire Emblem, death is only a net negative, and to most players there's no reason not to reset. So how would I fix this to actually make the mechanic integral to the series again? Well, you know how there's that biorhythm mechanic in Path of Radiance where sometimes you get minor buffs or debuffs in combat? What if there was a rage meter where if a character close to somebody died, that character would have their rage meter boosted for the next 3 chapters, which gave them about +5 to every stat. For instance, if Marisha died, in my version of the biorhythm meter, Mikhailov's stats would be temporarily increased and he would be very good for about the next 3 chapters depending on where you are. This would also make him easier to train, so after the rage boost ends, you would still have a solid unit after all the level ups. This would make permadeath a more interesting mechanic, since sure, you're losing something, but you would also gain something much greater for the next few chapters, and maybe the rest of the game if you play your cards right. As for story choices, let's go back to that Lucina choice. What if Robin let Lucina attack her, but Chrom stepped in before the final blow was dealt? Robin would be crippled for the rest of the game, but future Grima would also be much weaker too because of the wounds from his past self. This would be a great way to integrate a story choice into the gameplay. Sadly, due to the current scope of the series, for example, 3 houses having multiple routes, it would be very hard to implement something like this across all of those. Whoa, what's this I see? I see a light, what could it be? Hey, look, it's a character from that game nobody likes that has characters nobody likes.
It's okay, Perry. I still like you. It's okay.
Anyway, would you look at that? An actual interesting choice in a Fire Emblem game. In Conquest, when you capture Shura, you can choose between killing him to get a pair of boots, which in most Fire Emblem games allow great units to complete tasks even faster, or get Shura as a unit that's extremely good and has very important gameplay roles in the next few chapters. This also has a slight impact on the story, as Shura is the character who originally kidnapped Azura, and has a little revenge subplot going on in the next chapter. Well, what do you know? An interesting choice already exists in Fire Emblem, which makes me wonder even more why 3 Houses completely lacks them, given that the game tries to put a real emphasis on the choices you make. In conclusion, for a game that has emphasized choices a lot in recent entries, Fire Emblem's current offerings are shallow compared to games like Lisa the Painful and Undertale. You could say that accounting for every character death in the story would be a pain, like rewriting almost every scene Lisa is in if she happens to die in the tutorial, but then again, other games already do this. Also, as stated previously, maybe a less punishing version of permadeath would help the mechanic flourish and actually let players choose how their games play out. Doing this would also follow through on Shozo Kage's original vision, where in an interview about Mystery of the Emblem he said, "It's not a big deal if some of your characters die in Fire Emblem. I want each player to create their own unique story. Don't get caught up trying to get a perfect ending. Have fun!"